Dr. Philippa Whitford.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. The simple reason why we should make the move is it's the UK that has voted to leave. It is us that has caused the insecurity, whether to our citizens in Europe or EU nationals here. And it is therefore incumbent on us to make the move to try and deal with that. The idea that they're not having problems. I have constituents struggling to get loans or mortgages for businesses, for houses. It's ridiculous to say they are not concerned. They're absolutely concerned. And the idea they should spend 2 years in limbo is frankly appalling. Obviously, with my health background, we know that our health and social care system completely depends on EU nationals. We've got over 50,000 doctors and nurses. Now, the reason the Minister here was berating Shona Robison for trying to collect the data in Scotland is we don't have data for Scotland. The 130,000 is for England, because we never considered it at all relevant where someone who was settled in Scotland came from. So we never asked that. But now we need to know how many people might have an issue, whether it's that they get thrown out or they get fed up with the insecurity and actually leave. The other thing is, going forward, how do we think we're going to attract more? 1 in 10 medical jobs in England are empty. We have massive rota gaps. How easy do we think it is to attract EU doctors to come and fill that post in the coming years, when the message they get is, A, they're not terribly welcome, and B, if they come, they might be asked to go home because they came after... No, the honourable gentleman wasn't keen on interventions. I'm going to crack on. All right, briefly.
Very grateful to my honourable friend for giving way. She talks about the way in which EU nationals may feel about coming here in future. Does she also share my concern, the concern of many of my constituents, that this goes right back to the debate in this House on the bill itself, where we even froze them out of having a vote on the issue? The message is not good, and they may decide to turn their back on this new Brexit Britain.
Absolutely. I think so much of this is not just about technicalities, it's about the message we give outside. And as my honourable friend said in her winding up of her speech, it is also about the reputation of Britain. Britain has previously had a reputation for fairness. Look at the people who are second or third generation of immigrants who have made their home for generations in this country. And now we say, you might not be able to stay, or you might not be able to come. The best way to secure the place of British nationals in Europe is for us to be gracious. The honourable gentleman said, what have we done to try and make their position secure? I'm on the APPG for Germany, and both meeting the ambassador here and when I visited Berlin, when we raised this, they were incredulous that we would even think that they would ask British nationals to go away. They said, should we make a move? The place is our move to make, because it's the UK that has created this situation. Now, we can't survive without these people in the NHS, and particularly the 80,000 who work in social care. Now, if they apply because they're anxious for British citizenship, it will cost them almost £1,500 per head of their family to do so. That's quite a lot, when you may not even be earning the minimum wage. If their final position is that they might be treated the same as non-EEA citizens eventually, it will cost £4,000 per head, including the NHS surcharge, which, despite working in it, they might actually have to pay to access it. So to say that these things are trivial and they should be reassured, I think, is naive. Now, this is already also having an impact in medical research and academia. When I was at the graduation of my local university, just a week after Brexit, they had lost a senior researcher coming from mainland Europe, who was almost at the point of stepping on the boat. As he said, why would I move my children to an English-speaking school? Why would I disrupt and move my family when I might get sent home in 2 years? So the idea that this is having no effect and that people should just cling on to soft reassurance is childish. We are the ones who need to make the first move, and we should make that move. It can be that future agreements can be negotiated, but everyone settled here on the 23rd of June or earlier should have that right to remain, and we are the ones who should make that first move. Now, with that APPG, we had a visit to Berlin, and it was actually very interesting. A couple of the points that I picked up, Peter Altmaier, second in command to Angela Merkel, was actually quite shocked that we used the term EU migrant. He said they would never use that term. To them, migrant means someone from outside Europe. It would be like us being described as Scottish migrants or Irish migrants within the British Isles. It is something that seems abhorrent. So he was quite shocked at that. And at one point, very
grateful to her, but this is precisely the nub of the issue in the Brexit vote, because people from outside the EU, it's quite happy that the Germans are quite happy to describe them as migrants, but people within the EU are not. So it was this exclusive club, I think, that in many ethnic communities in Britain led to the outvote.
Well, frankly, it is an immigration arrangement from Europe, and if the honourable gentleman thinks that having stirred up the anti-immigrant view that led to leave, we're going to say we'll not take EU, we'll take a lot more people from the rest of the world, then I'm afraid he's also deluding himself.
Delusional.
The thing is that one of the other things that came up was members of our group saying Europe has to change, free movement, so we can stay in the single market. And where were we sitting at that moment? We were sitting in what had previously been East Berlin. We need to understand that for all Germans and East Europeans, free movement of people is something from the heart. It is not a technical problem. To them, they don't realise that we don't understand that. 27 years ago, there was a wall through Berlin. The last person trying to get over it was shot just a few months before it came down. Angela Merkel couldn't travel west until she was 36 years old. Now, in the debate we had in July, I mentioned the fact that my husband Hans is a GP who has worked in our NHS, I'm sorry, I'm running out of time, for 30 years. Now, at first he didn't really think that this concerned him because he thought, you know, this will all disappear. But 4 months on, it has not disappeared. And the problem is that these people are finding it terrible. It might be because the minister in that debate said, of course, anyone above 5 years can apply for right to remain. And when I mentioned my husband, he said, oh, he can definitely stay. Now, my husband has printed out Hansard and is keeping it in his passport to absolutely prove he's got his personal reassurance. But what the minister also said in that debate, but we will have to consider what rights and benefits they have, what of our public services they can access. And my husband, nearing retirement after 30-odd years in the NHS, is really concerned that he might get to stay, but he might suddenly have to pay for the healthcare he's been delivering for 30 years. And we're told we're the scaremongers. Now, the story of my husband's family, his father was German and his mother was Polish. They met during the war, were not allowed to marry. They had a child that was taken away from them. They were lifted and interrogated by the Gestapo, his father imprisoned, his mother turned into a forced labourer. Now, long before this debate arose, my husband used to say, I can't believe that in one generation I've been allowed to marry who I like, settle where I like, and carry out the profession I chose. I can't believe that in one more generation we could lose those rights and take them away from our young people.